at it. It's just obviously the season at this point still an 18-4 record is still really good, but obviously the 2 games in the West Coast were not the way you guys hoped for. How do you kind of go about making sure the team is aware of things that need to be addressed and things like that without being like deflated by the law? Just maybe a proper amount of deflation.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the timing of it. We've had some really good timing of when we needed to play certain teams. Maybe you match up better, and that's been good at parts of the schedule. This was just, I think, really unfortunate timing of, I want to make sure that I'm not misconstrued. Having Taylor's injury is not any type of excuse. You got to figure it out. I just think these 2 types of teams, going into them, you need every offensive, confident juggernaut when you're facing some defensive juggernauts. With that being said, I didn't have them really ready for, obviously, that initial game with USC. But USC, and they're a lot better than the record. I think any coach, if you polled us, a lot of their games, couple they'd been blown out, but they were pretty close. It could have gone either way. So you're playing a really good team that's in probably a little desperation mode and really urgent, and you caught them on a really good day. And I think UCLA is definitely the number 2 team. I'm sure who's 3, Texas, maybe they'll disagree with that because they beat them earlier. So it was 2 really good teams. We didn't play our best. I didn't have us prepared our best, but that's what it is. And so now we come back and we play the next team on the schedule. It's Minnesota, who's playing really well. I've been impressed with Minnesota since, I just started watching them randomly in the fall. So now we have a really good challenge ahead of us, and now we just have to be ready to bounce back. But I just, I don't think you can make anything too high or low. I think fans probably at times can, but it's part of a season. And I think we'll come back tomorrow, and I think we'll perform well.
You talked a lot out there about how Taylor's absence affected things defensively. Given that unit's kept you in a lot of games and is a big reason why you're where you guys are at, what are kind of the biggest things moving forward to keep that unit as consistent as possible?
Yeah, I just think you just kind of have to get used to a new, different type of cadence, right? I think you kind of liken it to just, if you have, let's say you have replace a knee, right? Just for a while, you have to kind of get used to how you're going to navigate, right? And then once you kind of get used to it, then we're okay, right? And then before you know it, the knee's it's good, it's fine. So I just think we have to get used to it a little bit. We have to find the combinations that it's just a little reforming, and sometimes you just need a little bit of time. And we answered the call really quickly against Ohio State, right? We just didn't have a lot of time to think, and it was just kind of business as usual. So I just, we're working on that in practice. We're working that in different combinations, but we've had a little bit more time together. So I'm hopeful the more, we have that, consistency, we'll just start to get used to what it feels and looks like.
Addie had been so good for 4 or 5 games, and she went out there. What wasn't a great road trip for her. Was that maybe starting? Was that being hyped up to be back home?
Yeah, I think it was probably a combination. Usually that going back home will work, 1 of 2 ways, the adrenaline. But I think that, she's a freshman in some pretty big games and moments. And, their scouting report probably was really going to, attack our youth, right? And so the youngest kids on the team are going to get a lot of the pressure and get a lot of the, just any time that they had it, and it wasn't just Addie, they just kind of got up into them a little bit more. So I think a little bit of the tension with that. Sometimes when you're coming off the bench, you have time to kind of process, and the first sting of how a defense is going to attack you is kind of lessened a bit. So I think that, and I think, she's a freshman sometimes, and that's just what I've been, saying a lot during the year of just the progression of what it takes. And with, Addie, I think she's done a great job developing, and she earned that start with the games that she has had. And there's just going to be tougher days, and that's what we spoke to her about. And, she's a tough kid, and she's growing and developing, but it's just, it's not it's never an easy, just smooth ascent, with the team or with a development. It's going to have a little, turns and twists. But I just think, it was a pretty, two really good teams that she had to get those first starts. But I suspect she'll be able to shake that off and come back and show all the things that we've seen.
Is the plan to stick with her in the starting lineup tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a couple players that maybe had weeks that were bright spots and otherwise disappointing trip. Maybe Journey Houston, Taylor Stronach played well.
Yeah.
How important was it, especially for Journey, to show some of that scoring capability? She's done so much on the glass, but for her to step up at a time where with Taylor McCabe out, you need to find a little bit of scoring somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think it was huge, and I think Journey's kind of been showing that throughout the year. And I think sometimes we can all get lost in just the record of this team, and when it doesn't go well, or we maybe win and you don't play well, the growth that's happening with a lot of the young kids who are really a lot of the key cogs of this wheel. Journey is really a bright spot, and she's a freshman. Ava is a sophomore, is doing really a lot of great things. Taylor Strimlow is doing a lot of great things, and what I like about her right now coming off the bench is she can really come in confidently at your 1, your 2, your 3 position. We just have kids that are just giving us growth, and I think if we can keep Journey continuing to be confident and really going into games and starting realizing, hey, I can do this. That's going to, not just for that particular game, hopefully, but hopefully tomorrow's game. And as we build this for the rest of the season, but as we jumpstart, really looking down the road. But, I think I told you early in the fall, just Journey's motor, and she can kind of play with a little, edge, but stay relaxed. And that's a really nice gift to have.
You've now compared Taylor's injury to getting your crops hailed out and getting a knee replacement.
I know.
I guess.
Yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
What
No.
makes you confident that your team can overcome that collective trauma?
Well, I just think that they've been pretty resilient all year. They're a together team. They love each other. They love to win. I just think that's where I have my confidence. But you get confidence when you start to get a little success that okay, we can do this. I would like to think if we had the confines of our maybe a home game, and we could go rewind and maybe we played a non-conference game right after Ohio State, we might feel a little better about things, but we didn't have the luxury. So you go right into a game arguably against tough matchups for us, then you get a little bit shaken, right? And so what I've just constantly been trying to tell them is just stay that course. Stay the course. We've shown some really great minutes against some really great teams. Ohio State, Michigan State, Adam, Maryland. We've just had, moments in even how we handled certain things way back in Baylor. Is we've handled different situations. Is now we gotta lean on that preparation. And I think if we can just taste that again, right? If we can just, get feeling, okay, yeah, that felt a little bit better. When we closed the gap a little bit at UCLA, which I liked the run there, but then Corey called a heck of a timeout, and just exactly what you want to have out of a timeout. Came out and just went right at us inside, and then they popped the 3, and it was 5-6 points, boom, and then the door was closed again. But I've tried to focus on that, and I think, I just think that their resiliency is it's going to have to be what takes us.
You talked about Taylor being able to, play the 1, 2, or 3, and there's not much depth there now. How close are either Tegan or Callie to making an impactful impact?
Yeah, and that's the thing, when we're in practice, is trying to, find that. Callie got some minutes against USC, and she had just broken her nose the day before. And with the USC game, you're getting kind of used to the mask, and I thought she, gave us some good minutes. And then when we went against UCLA, I tried to stretch some Tegan minutes bigger. They were bigger, the team, with Tegan giving her, a shot because we needed a bigger guard. So just trying to get them a little experience. But that's always the hard part, is parlaying practice prep into games, and the kids who can kind of play multiple positions, is you just don't have a lot of minutes to keep, plugging or pushing buttons. So, leaning on pass performances, leaning on how everybody's practice, leaning on combinations, of all the practices, the stats, that's kind of where you're going. And then who's in foul trouble, who isn't playing well. Sometimes you just gotta okay, I need a difference. So I guess I don't know exactly how close they are. I do believe in each of them. I think they both can have breakthrough moments if needed. I also know that in their roles that they're doing, they're also doing a great job in those. And two things can be true. You can keep pushing for more of a role, but you can also be shining in your current role. So I think they're doing a good job. It just depends on the time and place and pace.
Could you put Jeremy at the 3?
We can in certain sets. In other sets, it's a little harder just because the 3 and the 4 do such opposite things. We tried that for a little bit in the UCLA game. So if we need that, I've been working on different tweaks that we maybe can utilize that if the game calls for it. I didn't have it in prior.
There were a handful of years there where Minnesota was a team that you looked at the schedule, that should probably be a win. Not really the case as much anymore.
Not at all.
What stands out about them as you watch the film? It looks like they're going to be going to the NCAA tournament for I think the first time since like 2018.
Yeah, I really respect Dawn. She's been a long time assistant before she got the head job. And then her first Power 4 head job, I think she was a year at West Virginia, and then she came to Minnesota. They're just they're well coached. They play really great defense. They're really sound defensively. They don't make many mistakes defensively. They also can score at every position. Sometimes it's helpful when you can sag off of someone. They have a really great inside game. We recruited this Sophie Hart. She initially went to NC State. She's from Minnesota, transferred back. Just a big old school post that I love, and just a great kid. Maya Battle, and we recruit a lot of these kids because we recruit Minnesota. She's a top level scorer. She can pull up. She can get to the block. Victoria is a really nice long 1-2 guard. She hits the 3. She can post up on you. So their guards can post up, which a lot of times guards don't. So that makes them a little different. They do have a really, like I said, sound inside game, and they just have a killer lethal 3-baller. And Grace Grokowski, number 25, recruited, her, watching her too. So. And then Mara Braun, I forgot about her. She's a great player. She's been injured a little bit. So they're just good. They're really good. And I think the fan base, you just don't think, oh, they're back at home and it's Minnesota. This league is like 1 or 2 wins or losses separate so many of us that are really, really good. So we're going to have to bring it. We're going to have the resiliency. We're going to have to keep our confidence up and know that we've got to find a ways to reform into the team that we're going to be. And if we can do that, consistently, I do believe we can still continue having this special year, but it just got harder. It's going to get harder as you go in a season. It got a little harder when you take out a piece. But Minnesota's the real deal, for sure.
Journey and Kylie mentioned that, USC and UCLA, maybe there's some unforced turnovers under your guys then. Minnesota loves to play games in, the 60s and really short games, and they don't turn the ball over basically at all.
Really, really
so how
great.
important is that turnover battle going to be in cleaning up some
Yeah,
of those
and I thought we did. The pressure probably did that a little bit to us, but I think the threat of pressure in your mind, right? All of a sudden you get heightened, and then we're like, it's a hot potato, right? So we've been trying to work on that, getting our gray squad, our practice guys, simulating that a little better. So I think that we just have to keep our heads, because Minnesota they'll definitely be efficient with the ball, and they have good ball pressure too. So if we can clean up that, but we've talked about turnovers a little bit throughout this year. And there was a few things out west, not just the turnovers, but they certainly didn't help. We played fast. We weren't as thoughtful. We weren't concentrating quite as much on, the counters of pressure. So I've liked our last, practice. You have to take a mandatory day off, so this will be you usually have a 2-day prep. I really thought we practiced with great attention, and our kick was back a little bit. So I hope we have one more good practice with that, but taking care of the ball will definitely be a key.
Height disparity isn't something you can control. But what do you want to see from your post defense?
Well, I want us to, not foul, number one. I mean, every time, we've gotten in foul trouble, it hasn't boded well for us, right? And that is one thing that I think we just got to use our footwork quickness. Minnesota, Hart and Tonga are very strong, and you're not going to move them. You're not going to, really push them and be physical with that. So we need to counter with feet and not reaching and shoving, right? So I'd like to counter with that. But we just need to not foul. And a lot of that's mentality, a lot of that's discipline. And I'm trying to think of ways in practice of which to discipline that, consequences for that. But, we just have to improve that area.
On that, Ava, we've talked about her being in foul trouble previously this season. In the last 4 games, she's had 4 fouls, and 3 of them 0 against Ohio State. But in Maryland, she came in with 4 fouls for the final 5 minutes of regulation, or 4 minutes of regulation, played the entire overtime without picking up a 5th foul. Do you feel like she kind of started to turn a corner there for that, end of the Maryland game, Ohio State game, and then the whistle was what it was down in LA?
Yeah, I do think her mentality is getting a little better. Younger players, and I know she's older and is a sophomore, but in their minds, this is the first time she's been a marquee player, if you will. Very much starred on the scouting report, and she's had moments where she should be starred. Their minds aren't quite there. They don't see themselves yet as that. So they can lose, like you get a foul, then you get tentative, and then you don't, you focus on the thing you don't want to do, and what do? You do the thing you don't want to do. Sometimes you foul again on a reach. So I think she's had great growth in that. And, I think Randy Henderson, she oversees the post. I know she's really been, doing a great job with both her and Hayes and, Hannah. But that part, I think, just the growth of Ava, and I think she's becoming more resilient in her mind, is stopping those doubts. And I do think that's nice to draw upon that, her Maryland game. Like, hey, you went in and did all that. And then the Ohio State game, we didn't even have any of that, right? So I think she's building and stacking the days with that, which I think's really been helpful for us.
So, Coach, it's National Girls and Women in Sports Day. To be a coach at a school that's done so much for the advancement of women's sports, what does that mean to you?
I just have a lot of pride about, being a coach in the state of Iowa and being a product of Iowa. We just grew up and, the high school Girls Athletic Association, their tagline is the Iowa Girl. And so when you grew up in Iowa, you kind of just thought it was like that, where people cared about sport and they are excited about it. They supported it. And then as you grew up and then you go to college and then you coach in college and you realize that it's really not like that. That's, even more reason why my pride is great in the state, but certainly at the University of Iowa with the great leadership of Dr. Christine Grant, of all she did to create this athletic department, but then to, I think, set the standard for women in collegiate sport, and then certainly men and women at the University of Iowa really cared, and they continue to uphold that standard. And certainly having a great female athletic director with Beth Getz, a great female president, Barbara Wilson, our foundation and hospital, they're led by women. It's really very empowering. It's great examples for our women, and I think that game, here, it definitely is very, very special.